Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are absolutely jumping right into a classic piece of literature that perfectly captures the hilarious and honestly, sometimes chaotic friction between well-meaning adults and mischievous kids. We're looking at a famous extract called The Cat and the Painkiller. It is just a brilliant study in good intentions gone incredibly wildly wrong. So let's dive into this by asking a completely relatable question. Think back to a time someone made you drink something truly awful, or maybe endure some strange health fad, just because they swore up and down it would cure whatever ailed you. Maybe it was a horribly bitter syrup or some bizarre herbal tea. Keep that specific memory of childhood suffering in mind, because as we're about to see, our main character goes through the exact same thing, but on a whole different level. Section 1. Context and the author. Now, before we get to the flying felines and bizarre medicines, we need to know who we're dealing with. The author, Samuel Langhorne Clemens, who is universally known by his pen name, Mark Twain, used his own upbringing in Hannibal, Missouri, to create his famously mischievous protagonist, Tom Sawyer. Twain was an absolute master humorist, and he knew exactly how to observe the quirks of human nature, especially that classic dynamic between a restless boy growing up along the Mississippi River and the adults who were just desperately trying to keep him in line. Section 2. A Boy's Broken Heart. Let's start with the catalyst for our entire story here, which is Tom Sawyer's sudden and severe depression. You know, even the most energetic kids have their down days, but for Tom, this was serious. The root cause of the whole issue is actually matters of the heart. Tom's friend, Becky Thatcher, falls ill and stops coming to school for a long time, and because of her absence, Tom's life just loses all its joy. The text actually tells us that the very charm of life was gone. He stops playing entirely, he puts his favorite hoop and his bat away because there is literally no joy in them anymore. He is left with nothing but sheer, overwhelming boredom. And this sudden change, this pale, completely dejected state, causes his Aunt Polly to become incredibly concerned. Which brings us to Aunt Polly. The text describes her as this incurable experimenter who was infatuated with patent medicines and all new methods of producing or mending health. Basically, she was inspired by these intense, short-lived passions for health fads. And Tom's low condition? Well, to an incurable experimenter like Aunt Polly, his sadness was a total windfall. It was the absolute perfect excuse to test out some new remedies. Section 3. Aunt Polly's Quack Cures. Aunt Polly's deep love for Tom, mixed directly with her total obsession for new health methods, unleashes a barrage of intense 19th century wellness trends upon this poor boy. She sets to work with an almost terrifying enthusiasm. This was the water treatment, which was brand new at the time. Just imagine waking up at the crack of dawn only to be put through this grueling 3-step torture routine in the name of health. She stood him up in the woodshed and just drowned him in cold water. Then she rubbed him hard down with a towel that the text specifically says felt like a file. Finally, she rolled him up in a wet sheet and put him away under blankets. But despite this horrible ordeal, Tom only grew more sad, pale, and dejected. So when the brutal water treatment completely fails to cure Tom's broken heart, Aunt Polly escalates her war on his illness. She adds hot baths, sitz baths, shower baths, and plunges, which is the act of thrusting him forcibly into liquid. When the boy remains bored, she assists the water with a slim oatmeal diet and blister plasters. She literally calculates his capacity and fills him up every single day with what Twain calls quack cure-alls, essentially ignorant, fraudulent medicines that do absolutely nothing. Well, fed up with a daily torture, Tom realizes he needs to take matters into his own hands. He formulates a brilliant plan of relief, the painkiller. He begins asking for this terrible medicine so frequently and with such persistence that he actually becomes a nuisance to Aunt Polly. Eventually, he annoys her so much that she tells him to just help himself and quit bothering her. Here is the crucial point. Tom was merely professing to be fond of the painkiller, meaning he was claiming falsely to have a fondness for it. Aunt Polly noticed the medicine in the bottle was indeed diminishing, but she was completely oblivious to the truth. It never even occurred to her that Tom wasn't swallowing it at all. He was secretly using it to mend a crack in the sitting room floor. Moving right along to Section 4, Peter the Cat's Wild Ride. Enter our innocent and, frankly, greedy bystander named Peter the Cat. Peter is Aunt Polly's pet, and he is about to have a very, very bad day. One day, Tom is in the act of dosing the crack in the floor when Peter comes purring along, eyeing the teaspoon greedily. Tom warns him, but Peter signifies he wants it. So Tom opens the cat's mouth and pours down the painkiller. And suddenly, Peter experiences a literal explosion of chaotic energy. By second 1, he springs a couple of yards in the air, delivers a war whoop, and just starts banging against furniture. By second 5, he's dancing on his hind feet, spreading chaos and destruction, and finally, he delivers a mighty hurrah and sails right out the open window, taking flower pots with him. Twain's vocabulary here paints just an incredibly vivid picture. Peter the cat was dancing in a complete frenzy, a state of completely uncontrolled excitement. He was literally throwing acrobatic somersaults out the window. And right in the middle of this feline hurricane, Aunt Polly walks in. She stands completely petrified, extremely frightened and rigid with astonishment, peering over her glasses, while Tom is lying on the floor, absolutely expiring with laughter at the mess he's created. Section 5, the true medicine, empathy. But right here, the comedy suddenly pauses. The whole narrative shifts. Aunt Polly isn't foolish, right? She looks around and she discovers the painkiller spoon under the bed. The jig is up. She raises Tom by his usual handle, his ear, and cracks him soundly on the head with her thimble. Then, she demands to know why on earth he would treat a poor, dumb beast so cruelly. In response, Tom delivers this profound, absolute mic drop argument. He looks at her and says he did it out of pity for the cat, because the cat didn't have an aunt. Aunt Polly calls him a numbskull and asks what that has to do with anything. Tom replies that if the cat had an aunt, she would have roasted his bowels out with medicine without any feeling, just as if he were a human. At this exact moment, Aunt Polly feels a sudden, sharp, deeply painful regret. This perspective puts everything in a completely new light for her. She realizes that what she considered cruelty to a cat was exactly what she had been doing to Tom. Forcing intense, painful, unproven remedies on someone, even if you are doing it with the best of intentions and love, is still a form of cruelty. It's a massive, absolute epiphany for her. In what is a beautiful moment of adult vulnerability and growth, Aunt Polly actually softens. She feels genuinely sorry. Her eyes water a little bit, and she puts her hand gently on Tom's head, telling him she was only meaning for the best. Tom, with a very recognizable twinkle in his eye, agrees that he meant the best for the cat too. Ultimately, she tells Tom to go along and try to be a good boy, and most importantly, that he needn't take any more medicine. To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a rather provocative thought to ponder. Mark Twain masterfully uses a hilarious prank to teach a really deep lesson about empathy here. We often try to force our own remedies, our own advice, and our own cures onto the people we care about just because we want to see them happy. But we really have to be careful regarding the boundary between well-intentioned care and misguided control. Next time you try to fix someone, ask yourself, are you actually helping them, or are you just pouring painkiller down a cat's throat? Thank you so much for exploring this classic piece of literature with me.